Have you ever stared out at the ocean and felt a sense of timeless peace? A feeling that you're looking at something eternal and unchanging? For most of human history, that feeling was justified, as the seas were a cradle of stability, teeming with a predictable, vibrant dance of life. We remember visions of sprawling coral cities, shimmering with a million colors, and the graceful ballet of whales in the deep blue. But what if that peace was just an illusion, a temporary state that is now quietly, almost imperceptibly, coming to an end? What if the silence we hear from the ocean today isn't peace, but the held breath before a terrifying transformation? This isn't a story about the ocean dying. It's about something far more unsettling taking its place. Today, our oceans are becoming a vast, planetary crime scene, and we are the prime suspects in this unfolding mystery. The evidence is everywhere, from the ghostly white skeletons of bleached coral reefs to the ever-expanding dead zones where oxygen has vanished completely. These are the obvious clues, the ones that make the headlines and fill documentaries with somber music. But the real story, the truly unnerving part, is happening on a scale we can barely comprehend, a chemical rewriting of the entire system. The rising acidity, a direct consequence of our atmospheric carbon, is a slow-acting poison, dissolving the very building blocks of marine life as we know it, with the pH expected to drop from 8.1 to 7.8 this century. Web 1. This planetary fever isn't just killing the old world. It's acting as a terrifying incubator for a new one. Scientists call our era the Anthropocene, but it's more accurate to think of it as the Anthropocene accelerator. We have, through a cocktail of chemical pollution, plastic waste, and relentless heat, created a high-pressure evolutionary chamber. Life has always adapted, but never this fast, never under this much synthetic pressure. The normal, slow march of natural selection has been thrown out the window, replaced by a desperate, chaotic scramble for survival. In this new world, the rules are different, and the winners will be organisms that can thrive in conditions that would have been considered alien just a few centuries ago. The first disquieting signs of this new order are already here, and they are not subtle. Consider the great jellyfish blooms, vast flotillas of gelatinous life that now swarm our coastlines in unprecedented numbers. These are not the gentle drifters you might see in an aquarium. They are a biological tide, a planetary immune response gone haywire. They move in silent, pulsing armies, their populations exploding in the warmer, more acidic waters that kill their competitors and predators. Are they merely passive opportunists filling a vacant niche? Or are they the first wave of a biological regime change, a sign that the ocean's operating system is being fundamentally rewritten? The horror of this invasion is not just ecological, but deeply practical and menacingly physical. These ghost-like swarms have become so dense they have clogged the cooling intakes of coastal nuclear power plants, forcing emergency shutdowns. They have capsized fishing trawlers with their sheer collective weight, a suffocating blanket of life overwhelming our technology. It's as if the ocean itself is developing a new weapon system, one that is passive, decentralized, and utterly indifferent to our existence. Each bloom is a silent warning, a demonstration of power from an ecosystem that is beginning to fight back in ways we never anticipated, reminding us of our fragility in the face of nature's raw, adaptive force. While the jellyfish claim the water column, an even stranger revolution is starting on the seafloor and in the great gyres of floating trash. Scientists recently discovered bacteria that have evolved the astonishing ability to consume plastic, to treat our indestructible waste as food. On the surface, this sounds like a miracle solution, a convenient biological cleanup crew for our planetary mess. But look closer, and the implications become far more sinister. These microbes aren't just eating plastic. They are incorporating it, learning from it, and becoming something new. They are the scouts, the pioneers for a new kingdom of life built on a synthetic foundation. What kind of life emerges when its very DNA is forged in a soup of polyethylene and warmed by our industrial breath? These are not the creatures of Darwin's gentle ponds, but the children of our chemical dumps. The plastic eaters and the jellyfish legions are not separate, isolated phenomena. They are the connected symptoms of a planet in metamorphosis. They are the heralds of an epoch where life no longer depends on the delicate carbon cycles of old, but on the strange and durable garbage we have bequeathed to the future. The very definition of natural is dissolving before our eyes, replaced by a hybrid reality we are only just beginning to witness. We stand at the shore, looking out at an ocean that seems familiar, but beneath the waves, a new world is being born from the ruins of our own making. The changes we see on the surface are just the first tremors, the faint outlines of what is to come. If these strange, resilient organisms, the city-sized jellyfish blooms and the plastic-eating microbes, are merely the advance guard, what kind of true monsters are being forged right now in the crushing, lightless, and increasingly corrosive depths? What new apex predators are evolving in the dark, preparing to rise and inherit a world that we have so carelessly broken? Welcome to the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, but not as you know it from the textbooks of the 21st century. Gone are the loose, swirling eddies of debris. In their place stands a solid, terrifying continent, a fused landmass of refused history that blocks out the sun for miles. It's a floating graveyard of our civilization, where millions of tons of polyethylene and styrofoam have been compacted by centuries of currents into a new, synthetic bedrock. Standing here, the ground beneath your feet feels wrong. It's spongy, warm, and brilliantly, painfully colorful. A psychedelic mosaic of old detergent bottles and fishing nets. This isn't just pollution anymore. It is the foundation for an entirely new, nightmarish ecosystem. Can you hear the skittering? That is the sound of life adapting to a world we poisoned. Enter the polymer crab, the first true child of this plastic continent and a grotesque marvel of rapid evolution. At first glance, it looks like an oversized hermit crab, but look closer at that shell. It isn't made of calcium carbonate or scavenged sea snails. The creature has evolved to secrete a corrosive enzyme that softens the surrounding plastic, allowing it to mold layers of hardened resin directly onto its back. Its armor is a patchwork of bottle caps and melted fibers, a chaotic camouflage that makes it invisible against the garbage reef. This isn't just a shell. It's a chemical hazmat suit, shielding the soft, mutating flesh underneath from the toxic slurry it calls home. Does it feel pain? Or has it evolved beyond the need for such biological warnings? But the polymer crab is just the armored tank of this new world. The true horror lies in what's happening on a microscopic level. Deep within the crevices of this floating island, a quiet revolution is taking place, driven by bacteria that have learned to feast on the very thing we thought was indestructible. These aren't your garden-variety decomposers. They possess a newly evolved enzyme motif, the M5 fingerprint, which unlocks the chemical bonds of PET plastic as easily as we digest sugar. They swarm in the trillions, turning the water into a thick, milky broth of partially digested polymers. It's a feeding frenzy that has been building for 1,000 years, a banquet of eternal waste. Imagine a slime mold that doesn't just grow on plastic but becomes it, weaving synthetic fibers into its own cellular structure. These microbial mats stretch across the garbage patch like a skin, pulsating with a faint, sickly luminescence as they break down the hydrocarbon chains. They are blurring the line between the biological and the artificial, creating a hybrid matter that has never existed before in the history of the universe. If you were to touch it, would it feel like flesh or like wet vinyl? This is the ultimate symbiosis. Life embracing the artificial, finding a way to thrive in a sterile hellscape. It's beautiful in a way, isn't it? The kind of beauty that makes your skin crawl. As these bacteria feast, they release byproducts that are toxic to the old life but ambrosia to the new mutants rising from the depths. The water here tastes of burning chemicals and tastes of progress gone wrong. A rich soup of microplastics that feeds the bottom of a twisted food chain. The fish that survive here have forgotten what clean water feels like. Their gills are lined with mucus filters designed to trap synthetic particles. They are sluggish, pale, and riddled with tumors that pulse with their own strange vitality. Is this evolution, or is it a slow, agonizing mutation? Perhaps, in this new ocean, there is no difference between the two. The polymer crab, meanwhile, has found a way to weaponize this environment, turning defense into a terrifying offense. It scavenges not just for shelter, but for toxins, concentrating the pollutants from its diet into venomous spines that line its plastic shell. A single scratch from this creature doesn't just bleed. It infects you with a millennium of industrial sludge, a chemical cocktail that no modern medicine could neutralize. It is a living, breathing toxic waste dump, scuttling sideways across the trash dunes. It stares at you with multifaceted eyes that seem to reflect the fractured, colorful world it inherited. Does it know that its ancestors once lived in clean sand? We used to worry that plastic would last forever, choking the planet in a permanent, inorganic stranglehold. We were wrong. Nature didn't reject our plastic. It absorbed it, twisted it, and made it part of the family. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch is no longer a passive accumulation of trash. It is a living, breathing organism, a hive mind of plastic eaters and polymer-shelled monsters. It is growing, expanding, converting the ocean into its own image one molecule at a time. The plastic isn't going away. It's waking up, and it's hungry. So, as we leave the sun-baked nightmare of the surface, let's ask ourselves, if life can twist itself to survive here, amidst the floating refuse, what is happening in the deep? What occurs when this heavy, plastic-infused marine snow drifts down into the crushing darkness where the water turns to acid? We are about to descend into the twilight zone, leaving the colorful horror of the polymer crabs behind for something far more ghostly. The surface was just the warning. The true transformation, the one that dissolves bone and memory alike, awaits us in the acidic depths below. Are you ready to see what lies beneath the plastic crust? Leaving the colorful nightmare of the plastic surface behind, we descend. The water grows colder, the light fades to a bruised purple, and a strange, heavy silence presses against the hull of our imagination. We are entering the acidic depths, a realm where the ocean's chemistry has turned hostile to the very memory of life as we once knew it. In this future, the pH has dropped so low that the water itself has become a slow-motion solvent, a corrosive bath that eats calcium carbonate for breakfast. This is the dissolution zone, a place where the past is erased before it can even settle into the mud. Can you feel the burn? For a creature with a shell, this water feels like swimming in vinegar. Down here, the crunch of life is gone. The clams, the snails, the beautiful, spiraling ammonites of the future. They never stood a chance. Their protective homes dissolved faster than they could build them, leaving behind a world dominated by the soft, the slimy, and the gelatinous. It is a kingdom of ghosts and jelly, where bones are a liability and structure is a luxury no one can afford. But nature, in her terrifying ingenuity, abhors a vacuum. Where the shelled creatures died, something else rose to take their place, something that doesn't need calcium to rule the dark. Meet the acid jelly sovereign. Forget the passive, drifting jellyfish of the 21st century. The sovereign is a nightmare of active predation, a bus-sized phantom that moves with terrifying purpose. It has abandoned the fragile calcium of the old world for a structure built of silica and hardened proteins, materials that laugh at the acidity of the water. Its bell is not a delicate parachute but a muscular engine, pulsing with a rhythm that sends shockwaves through the gloom. It doesn't drift. It hunts. And its weapon of choice? The very acidity that killed its competitors. It concentrates the corrosive seawater in specialized bladders, spitting streams of concentrated acid that can liquefy prey in seconds. Imagine encountering one in the twilight. You wouldn't see it until it was too late. A shimmer in the water, a distortion of light like heat haze on a highway. The sovereign is nearly transparent, a living lens that bends the little remaining light to cloak its approach. It is the perfect ambush predator for a world without hiding places, a creature that has turned invisibility into an art form. When it strikes, it is silent, a sudden envelopment by burning, unseen tentacles. There is no struggle, only a quick dissolution, as the victim is digested by the water itself, aided by the sovereign's enzymes. The horror of this deep-sea world isn't just the monsters. It's the silence of the grave. In the oceans of the past, the seafloor was a library of history, layered with the shells and bones of millions of years. Here, the library has burned down. The skeletons of whales, the teeth of sharks, the shells of ancient mollusks. All gone, dissolved into the hungry water before they could ever become fossils. This is an era without a record, a black hole in the geological timeline. If a human were to die here, their bones would vanish in weeks, leaving nothing but a shadow in the sediment. It is a world that refuses to remember. Yet, even here, life clings to existence with a desperate, gruesome tenacity. Smaller creatures have evolved to live inside the sovereign, treating its massive, stinging bell as a mobile fortress. These jelly riders are immune to the acid, protected by mucus coats thick enough to stop a knife. They scavenge the scraps of the sovereign's meals, a parasitic entourage that drifts through the dark like fleas on a ghost. They are the only things with color in this monochrome world, flashing bioluminescent warnings that scream, "I am toxic. I am home." This ecosystem is a dark mirror of the coral reefs we lost. Instead of hard, colorful structures teeming with fish, we have shifting, transparent cathedrals of jelly, drifting through a sour ocean. It is a soft-bodied supremacy, where toughness is measured not by armor, but by chemical resilience. The sovereign represents a shift in the fundamental logic of biology, survival of the most acidic. It is a creature that has looked at the hostile world we created and said, "I can use this." As we drift away from the silent, burning dominion of the acid jelly sovereign, a new shape begins to emerge from the gloom. It is angular, rigid, and unervingly familiar. We are moving from the natural deep to the unnatural shallows, towards the drowned monuments of human hubris. Ahead lie the concrete canyons, the submerged ruins of our great coastal cities. What lives in the hollowed-out shell of a skyscraper when the streets are flooded and the lights have been out for 1,000 years? The jelly may rule the open water, but something else entirely claims the ruins of the Anthropocene. Rising from the acidic depths, we find ourselves in a place that feels disturbingly familiar yet utterly alien. These are the concrete canyons, the silent, flooded graveyards of what used to be the world's greatest coastal cities. Imagine drifting down Fifth Avenue or swimming through the Ginza district. But the sky is a ceiling of churning water, and the only pedestrians are schools of silver fish darting through shattered windows. The skyscrapers still stand, defiant tombstones stripped of glass and glory, acting as artificial cliffs for a new kind of reef. It is the ultimate haunted house, a recognizable skeleton of humanity now possessed by the ocean. The silence here is heavier than in the open sea. Down in the subway tunnels, where millions once commuted, the current rushes with a hollow, mournful groan, like air blowing over the lip of a giant bottle. In these pitch-black arteries of the old world, a new scavenger has made its home. Meet the fiber-optic eel, a creature that has forgotten the sun and found a new god in the heavy metals of our abandoned technology. They nest in the rotting server farms of submerged financial districts, their long, translucent bodies glowing with a cold, electric blue bioluminescence. These eels are not just living in the wreckage. They are mining it. They have evolved to sense the faint chemical trails of copper and gold leaching from corroded circuit boards, feeding on the mineral-rich moss that grows on our old machines. When they swarm, the dark windows of the skyscrapers light up again, flickering with a ghostly, biological power. It's a cruel mockery of the city that never sleeps, a metropolis that is technically dead, yet teeming with a restless, glowing energy that mimics the data streams of the past. Are they eating our history, or merely keeping the lights on? But the eels are just the prey. Lurking in the rusted steel beams of a collapsed bridge is the true landlord of this urban reef, the concrete mimic octopus. Evolution has taught this cephalopod that the vibrant colors of a coral reef are useless here. Instead, its skin is a textured map of gray slate, rusted iron, and mossy brick. It doesn't just change color, it changes texture, turning its skin into the pitted surface of eroding cement. It can flatten itself against a wall and vanish, becoming just another crack in the ruins of civilization. This predator understands the geometry of our architecture better than we do. It knows that prey moves in straight lines through hallways and elevator shafts. It waits in the living rooms of drowned apartments, its tentacles curled around doorframes, patient and still as a gargoyle. When a fish, or perhaps an inquisitive diving drone, drifts by, the wall itself seems to peel away and strike. It is the ultimate urban camouflage, a creature that has merged so perfectly with our wreckage that it has become the wreckage. The horror of the concrete canyons is the realization that nature doesn't mourn us. It overwrites us. We built these structures to defy the elements, to stand forever, but the ocean sees them only as a particularly complex cave system. Barnacles encrust the steering wheels of luxury cars. Sea anemones bloom on the screens of drowned televisions. Every artifact of human ego has been repurposed into a shelter or a trap. The city hasn't been destroyed. It has been redecorated by an interior designer with no concept of nostalgia. As you swim through this silent metropolis, you can't help but feel like an intruder in your own home. The questions hang in the water like silt. Did we build all of this just to create a playground for eels and octopuses? Is this our legacy, not the art or the science we left behind, but the perfect artificial reef structure we inadvertently poured for the next epoch? The concrete mimic octopus watching you from the shadows of a bank vault certainly seems to think so. It doesn't care about the money rotting beneath its tentacles. It only cares that the vault makes a secure den. But the city, for all its ghostly grandeur, is still a place of relative shelter. Beyond the jagged skyline of the submerged coast, the open ocean awaits, and it is becoming a hostile desert. The water there is getting hotter, stripped of oxygen, and inhospitable to almost everything that breathes. We are leaving the haunted ruins to enter the suffocation zone, a realm where the very act of breathing is a struggle, and where the creatures that survive are those that have learned to wait, to rot, and to consume from the inside out. If the concrete ruins were a haunted house, the open ocean has become a suffocating tomb. We are now entering the suffocation zone, a vast, expanding belt of water where the oxygen levels have plummeted to near zero. The vibrant blue of the past has curdled into a stagnant, sickly green haze, thick with algae that bloom and die in endless, toxic cycles. Here, the rules of the hunt have changed completely. Speed is a death sentence. To move fast is to burn precious oxygen you cannot replace. The tuna, the swordfish, the great white sharks, the athletes of the sea, are long dead, suffocated by their own high-performance metabolisms. In their place, a new dynasty of sluggish, patient nightmares has risen. Drifting through this hypoxic soup, you won't see the frenzied chases of the old world. The water is eerily still, disturbed only by the slow, rhythmic undulations of creatures that have learned to breathe emptiness. This is the domain of the ambush predator, where energy conservation is the only law. Below you, buried in the anoxic mud, lies the sludge siphon. Evolved from the humble marine worms of today, this monstrosity has grown to the size of a subway car. It is a living pipeline, a fleshy tunnel that waits for weeks, months, or even years for a single meal to wander by. The sludge siphon doesn't have eyes. In the murky gloom, vision is expensive and useless. Instead, it sees with chemical sensors so acute they can taste a heartbeat. It hunts by releasing a deceptive cocktail of pheromones that mimics the scent of dying fish. In a starving ocean, that scent is irresistible. Scavengers, desperate for a meal, follow the trail of death right into the siphon's gaping maw. There is no snap, no violence. Just a sudden, powerful suction that pulls the victim into a digestive chamber where oxygen is chemically stripped from their very blood. But the horror of the suffocation zone isn't just about what eats you. It's about what lives inside you. In a world where resources are scarce, biology has turned inward. We are seeing the rise of hyperparasitism, a Russian nesting doll of infection. Imagine a sluggish, blind fish gasping for air. Inside its gut lives a parasitic crustacean. Inside that crustacean lives a specialized worm. And inside that worm, a colony of bacteria that digests the host's own tissues. It is a cannibalistic economy where every organism is both a predator and a home, a desperate, efficient cycle of recycling life before it even dies. Take the ghost eye grouper, a fish that has lost its eyes entirely to a parasitic barnacle that roots directly into its optic nerve. The barnacle doesn't just blind the host, it pilots it. Using chemical signals, it steers the fish toward nutrient-rich currents that benefit the parasite, even if it leads the host into danger. The fish is no longer an animal. It is a meat puppet, a vehicle driven by the thing eating its brain. In the low-oxygen zones, autonomy is a luxury. Survival means surrendering your body to the swarm. This is a world of lethargic monsters and microscopic hijackers, a place where life has become slow, cruel, and incredibly efficient. The water here tastes of copper and decay, a metallic reminder of the chemistry that has gone wrong. It is a silent war of attrition, where the winner isn't the strongest, but the one who can hold their breath the longest. The grand, migrating herds of the past are just a memory, replaced by solitary, lurking shapes that fear movement more than they fear death. And yet, amidst this stagnation, there is a strange intelligence watching. As the fish and mammals choke and fade, the cephalopods, the squid, the cuttlefish, the octopus are not just surviving, they are thriving. Their blue blood, based on copper rather than iron, is surprisingly efficient in these warm, acidic, low-oxygen waters. While the rest of the ocean gasps for air, they are watching, learning, and evolving. We have seen the plastic armor, the acid-spitting jellies, and the parasitic puppets. But none of them are the true heirs to the throne. The ocean doesn't just need a survivor, it needs a ruler. And in the final act of our journey, we will meet the new kings of the deep, creatures that have traded solitary hunting for something far more dangerous: cooperation. The age of the mammal is over. The age of the tentacle has begun. We have journeyed through the plastic graveyards, the acid-burned depths, and the suffocating dead zones. We have seen nature twisted into grotesque survivalist shapes. But now, in the final act of our descent, we meet the only true winners of this planetary gamble. While the rest of the ocean gasps and rots, one family of creatures has not just survived, they have ascended. The age of the mammal is over. The whales and dolphins, with their high oxygen demands and fragile iron-based blood, are long gone. The throne of the deep sits empty, but not for long. Welcome to the empire of the cephalopod. Why them? It turns out that the blueprint for the future was written in their blood. Cephalopods, squid, octopuses, cuttlefish, use hemocyanin, a copper-based protein, to transport oxygen. In the hot, acidic, and low-oxygen soup of the future ocean, this ancient blue blood is far more efficient than our own red hemoglobin. While the fish grew sluggish and the mammals suffocated, the cephalopods found themselves energized, their metabolisms ticking faster in the heat. They are the beneficiaries of our destruction, the inheritors of a world we terraformed for them. But the real terror isn't their biology, it's their behavior. For millions of years, these creatures were brilliant but solitary, living fast and dying young. The pressures of the Anthropocene changed that. To hunt the massive sludge siphons or crack the armor of the polymer crabs, they needed more than just intelligence. They needed coordination. Meet the hive mind squid. These are not the panicked shoals of the past. They move with a terrifying, synchronized precision, a wolf pack with 9 brains per member. They have solved the one flaw that kept them from ruling the world. They learned to work together. Communication is the key to their kingdom. Their skin, a canvas of millions of chromatophores, has evolved from simple camouflage into a high-speed visual language. They don't speak, they flash. Complex patterns of strobe-like colors ripple across their bodies, transmitting tactical information, emotional states, and abstract concepts at the speed of thought. To watch a hunting party is to see a living thunderstorm of data. They are shouting in light, coordinating a three-dimensional flank on a confused predator before it even knows it's being hunted. And they are not just hunting, they are building. Look closely at the seabed. Those piles of plastic debris and whale bones aren't random. They are primitive fortresses, nurseries guarded by sentries who rotate shifts. We are witnessing the dawn of a new stone age, or perhaps a plastic age. They use sharp shards of polycarbonate as knives to pry open clams. They use discarded fiber optic cables to weave traps. They are interacting with the remnants of our civilization not as trash, but as raw materials for their own ascent. There is a profound irony here. We spent decades searching the stars for alien intelligence, wondering if we were alone in the universe. We never thought to look down into the dark water we treated as a sewer. The alien intelligence is here and it is homegrown. It is wet, it is cold, and it remembers. In the eyes of the hive mind squid, we are not gods or creators. We are just the environmental catastrophe that cleared the way for their rise, the meteor that wiped out the dinosaurs. As our submersible begins its long ascent back to the surface, back to the human world that feels increasingly fragile, take one last look. A large female squid hangs suspended in the black water, her tentacles gently undulating. She rotates her body and fixes a single, large, W-shaped pupil directly on you. There is no fear in that gaze, no curiosity. Only a calm, calculating assessment. She is looking at you the way a scientist looks at a fossil. The ocean of 1,000 years from now is not a dead place. It is wilder, stranger, and more terrifyingly alive than we can possibly imagine. It has chewed up our plastic, drunk our acid, and breathed our smog, and it has spit out something better, stronger, and smarter than what came before. We asked what new species would appear, but perhaps the real answer is that the ocean is done with species. It is building a civilization. The king is dead. Long live the squid.